and welcome to Waadaplaya Concussion Sub Series. This is Suman with new Concussion Sub this time, which is Sanjay. Okay, today is a very special day for our group. Really special. Second week of our launch, and we have our big fan moment here, right here. Today's guest, 804,000 YouTube followers, 860 million hours worth of YouTube videos watched by population, 57,000 Twitter followers, and his content and videos entertain millions of fans across the globe. Especially in the year like this, it is gold, absolute gold, getting the free content with no live cricket or very little live cricket, literally. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Rob Moddy, a.k.a. robelinda 2 from Australia. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Yeah, g'day guys. Pleasure to be on to chat cricket.
Awesome, awesome. So just before we jump in, right? 3 days ago, Robin Jackman unfortunately passed away, and I've always knew him as a excellent commentator, and I've always heard him speaking cricket. Never seen him play. Thanks to your channel, you posted a YouTube video where he bowled a beautiful delivery, caught a slip, and he absolutely was delighted to celebrate that wicket. That was the first time ever I've seen Robbie Jackman play cricket. So that's the kind of impact your videos have on population, Rob. So just something for people to know that what it means about your video archiving. So with that, why don't we jump right in? So how many actually hours of videos and number of games do you have, Rob?
Well, this year I planned on attempting to figure that out because it's difficult to know. Thankfully, when the pandemic hit and I slowly realized that the year was going to be spent at home, because it didn't look that likely, or maybe I was just in denial, as it was unfolding, you couldn't imagine what was actually going to happen this year and where we would be now, but at the start, I thought, oh, I should, if I've got a week off now, which ended up being the rest of the year. But back in March, I thought, oh, I've got a week off work. I should actually start to think about my long-term project of actually sorting out my cricket footage, because it's all over the place. And most of it's organized, but not in a way that makes it easy for me to find stuff. But as I got that 1 week off work, turned into two, turned into a month, 2 months, then I realized, I think this is actually going to be a significant amount of time. And so I went completely crazy and just spent all day, every day for a few months, just trying to organize everything properly and get some idea of actually how much I actually do have and what I have. I don't even know what I have. You just record it, forget about it. But I did attempt to convert all of my remaining DVDs to hard drives, and I'd done about 23,000 this year up to that point. I've still got a few thousand left.
Wow.
But there's a lot. But I feel like I'm on top of it at the moment. Yeah, there's a lot of footage.
That's great. And I've also noticed following your YouTube channel, you have a lot of 80s and 90s content and very little 2000s. Any reason why?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the ICC have made it pretty clear to me. It's great that they have, but they basically said that, if I stick to the old stuff and very old stuff, I'll be safe. Bear in mind, there was a period at the start of the pandemic, say March, April, where the cricket boards themselves were just starting to produce their own old content. How long did that last? What, 2 weeks? The ICC released a couple of old World Cup matches. And when I say old, like 2011 or 15, and everyone thought that was great if they can continue to open their vault, but it didn't last. It lasted a couple of games and that was it. But so they directed me then to say 1992 and onwards, no good.
Wow.
So I thought, gee, 92. Man, it's 28 years ago. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, well, fine. But I've known that for a while, but I tend to stick to things from a certain era, which I'm pretty confident that there will be absolutely no copyright trouble at all. I'm wrong sometimes, but you can't win when they keep changing the rules all the time. But yeah, there's no future for anyone uploading things from this year or last year. You've got to go back, which is advantage me because that's what I have. So it's great. But yeah, it'd be great to upload something from 2014 or 15, but just can't, and even the 2000s between 2000 and 2010 is still murky. I wouldn't touch anything from England in that period because they're known for striking channels. So yeah, it's constantly tough, but you've just got to think about what you want to upload and then think about it again and again and again and just make sure that it's going to be safe, because one or two strikes and the whole channel is gone.
Yeah, a lot of hard work. And I really hope the day comes when things open up for 2000s, your followers and views will quadruple or maybe times 10 for sure.
Yeah, well, that'd be great. I've got a lot of footage and I'm just sitting on it and I can't do anything with it. So it's unfortunate.
So how many strikes you're allowed on the channel? Or is it like 1, 2, 3 and your channel gets locked?
Yep, exactly that. 1, 2, 3 and it's gone. It doesn't just get locked, it gets deleted, terminated.
Oh, wow.
So it's a miracle it still exists, because I've been on 2 copyright strikes so many times and they come so quick. And I think, oh my God, like that I've had 2 overnight. And they were bogus ones. Anyone can actually, put a copyright strike violation through the system. It's pretty poor that can happen. But so any legitimate ones come on top of the bogus ones. They're all treated the same. It's, you're guilty until proven innocent with that system, and that is really poor. So it's a miracle that it still exists.
Okay. And in the process of uploading videos and cricket, seems like you also learned a lot of law and things like literature and stuff, which is great. So question for you. You have a YouTube channel, you have a Facebook page, and you have a Twitter page. And we as fans love it because all platforms we get content. So are you one-man army? Do you have a team? How do you manage so much? Because Sanjay can attest to it. 2 weeks into us, we are about very few shows and we feel very busy. So how do you manage so much?
I'm definitely a one-man army. There's no one else helping me. Well, during this year, because I've had so much more time to upload footage, it's been almost like a full-time job. But if things ever go back to normal, then I would never have that time. Say, comparison to last year, I would just upload things whenever I was home. I travel a lot for work, so I wouldn't have had that time to interact as much as I have this year across the platforms, especially Twitter, which is really great. But yeah, it'd be great if I had some staff that could help.
So a couple of more questions related to content. One, our group's name is Waadaplaya, and the inspiration of the name of the group is clearly Tony Grieg's commentary when Sachin Tendulkar was playing. Usually you hear him say, "What a player, what a wonderful player." Content on Tony Grieg. What about, what do you think about his commentary content? Talk to us about Tony Grieg and you.
Yeah, well, from an Aussie point of view, obviously we love Tony Grieg. He had different stages, or went through different stages of commentary throughout the, well, 80s and 90s and 2000s. Obviously, as he got older and as TV commentary for cricket evolved itself. I mean, it was obviously fairly, I wouldn't say poor back in the 70s and 80s, but it was just of its time. And Tony Grieg was one of the best voices, but as he evolved throughout the 80s, the accent was really funny for us Aussies, but he started to find his own voice in the things that he really believed in himself. I mean, obviously he was here in Australia, he was always known as the guy who loved the little Sri Lankans. He would every match, and it was great, because it actually made things happen, and obviously Tendulkar, but I think it was when he started to get work on more series outside of Australia, and you heard him commentate on matches that didn't involve Australia. So lots of subcontinent series, Pakistan or India or Sri Lanka, and you take the Australia out of the equation, and all of a sudden you hear a different type of commentary, because he isn't being needled by his Australian commentators in the Channel 9 box, and he's commentating with Sonal Gavaskar or Mike Hazeman or something completely different. And so his commentary that he tailored pretty much to an Australian audience, all of a sudden you heard a different style of commentary, where it was actually, I found, a little bit more, pure cricket commentary. And he certainly knew how to talk, to the different audiences that he was commentating to, which was different. Like, for instance, his commentary on Tendulkar was never like that as it was in Sharjah, as it was in Australia. It was completely different, So you could tell that he was really in the game in those Sharjah matches. He was an equal part of that whole match, especially looking back at it now. You obviously cannot imagine anyone else commentating on those matches. And the other commentators in the match clearly didn't have that much of an impact. From memory, Richie Benaud was in that series too in 98, but you wouldn't know.
Not at all. Yeah, Richie had his own class, but you're absolutely right. With Tony Grieg in the commentary box, it is difficult to overshadow him.
Yeah, and someone like Bill Lawry had not really much impact when he did the odd match overseas, like in the World Cup '99, where he was okay. But yeah, Tony Grieg had more of a universal appeal. People didn't see him as just another patriotic Aussie commentator, because he was never that.
Yeah.
And I think that came through pretty well, and he was genuine in that. He wouldn't blow his top at a game if someone was doing great just for the sake of it. You could imagine him in those Desert Storm games, like standing up and yelling into the microphone, because you could tell, like Ian Smith in the last World Cup. You could tell that these guys were really genuine, and that's what came across with his commentary, and maybe what doesn't come across in some of the current commentary.
Very
the different styles of commentary, Rob, you referred quite rightly. When you mentioned Richie Benaud and Tony Grieg, the comparison, the thing that came to my mind was Shane Warne's Ball of the Century, and Richie Benaud is on commentary, and you wouldn't really know that this is like, okay, the ball has turned so much, and Richie Benaud is like very subdued. Yeah, the ball has turned, and this looks to be a great delivery. And if Tony Grieg was to commentate on that, he might be completely different on a high pitch. But I mean, both had their own, followers, etc. But as you mentioned, probably, the times changed, and the commentary evolved as well.
Yeah, I mean, Richie Benaud's England commentary for BBC. You know, he never had to try and be anything he wasn't, and you can't imagine the producers saying, "Come on, Richie, you know, you called that dismissal pretty lame, mate." You know, they just let him do what he wanted. But yeah, it's yeah, and hearing Richie commentate in England versus Australia, again, completely different. I mean, when I first heard him do his English commentary, I almost couldn't believe it was the same person. You know, they different homework, you know, different style of commentary for the English viewers, which watch completely differently to what we do. So yeah, it's interesting to just think about then not even subtle differences, actually quite drastic changes of commentary approach.
Okay. So 1983, Rob. So of course we are Indians, and I know you have tons of content on 1980. So do you have any content of the famous 175 of Kapil Dev 1983 Tunbridge Wells?
I don't, but I've had quite a few leads to find that one guy in the crowd who did film it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, I even tried to track him down in India twice myself, which was pretty funny. But absolutely no luck at all. I mean, I can just imagine whoever that guy is, he may not even be alive anymore. He's probably got some little cassette tape that goes in his old video camera that could be long gone. Yeah, I would think it's impossible that will ever be seen by anyone.
Wasn't it the game where BBC, you know, some strike was on that day?
Yeah.
But it seems a bit weird because I think from memory, if I've read correctly, there was another Australia West Indies game on the same day. Unlike these days in the World Cup where you do not have multiple matches. So they had, you know, that limited crescendo to that game, and this game has got absolutely zero footage, as you probably mentioned.
Yeah, and the Australia West Indies match was good, but all the headlines were were Kapil Dev. But yeah, it's hey, I'm sure if footage ever did come, it would be pretty bad footage anyway. I mean, I can't imagine it being very good. But yeah, would still be nice to have something to put some visual to, you know, because you can only imagine, you know, what it would be, considering how unbelievably rare it is for anyone to have such an impact on a batting innings at that stage with such a collapse. And just unfortunate that it is one of the greatest innings on paper that, you know, you could read about. So there's not many over the last 30, 40 years that there's no footage of at all. It's probably the only one.
Yeah, it is unfortunate, but fantastic innings nevertheless. So good segue about India. We've watched a couple of YouTube channels and read online that you traveled to India. So give us context. What was the travel about? Your experiences about India trip, story?
Yeah, well, I've been to India twice. I mean, most of my work during a regular year is playing with my bands on cruise ships, and so we've been through India multiple times, and usually Mumbai, Cochin, and yeah, we get plenty of time on land, days to go and do whatever we want. I almost went to an IPL match, which was just couldn't make it happen, but it was because I was hunting down a few leads for matches from either the 175 couple or just trying to get a few contacts at just even Daughter-Shan employees from the 80s. You know, there's plenty of guys that have the footage or know someone who worked there or whatever. Yeah, but the two times I did try, I got absolutely nowhere. I only remember this one guy just following me around the streets of Mumbai for like 2 hours trying to sell me hash. And and I just couldn't get him off me. And it was literally about a meter behind me for like 2 hours, just going, hash, you want good hash? I have good hash.
That's
And I'm
pretty
going, mate, I don't want your hash, mate, but I'd love some odd cricket footage.
Yeah.
He didn't have any, but yeah, I didn't buy any hash.
Okay. But you mentioned, so you've never been to an IPL match in India, you said?
No.
And you should try it once. Just put it on your Twitter account, any IPL tickets, anybody who wants to sponsor me. And believe me, you'll
Yeah.
have royalty passes ready for you. 100%.
Yeah, as I said, we almost put it off the last time we were there, but it was a bit too far away. I think we're staying in Cochin, and there was a match not far from there, from memory, but the timing just didn't work out.
Okay, great. And that's again a perfect segue of our next question. So now that you have so much footage, what do you prefer? Do you prefer going to a ground and watching the game and come back and watch highlights, or would you prefer sitting at home and watching TV live on a cricket game?
Definitely sitting at home.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've always felt that, but yeah, I'm not sure why.
Mm.
But I can remember early days, if I did go to the cricket, I'd be terrified that there'd be some problem at home recording the cricket, and I can't be there to fix it because it's happened on other occasions, being at school and everything, and being really nervous that the tape would would run out early or something. So, and yeah, any good memories I have of going to the cricket are far less than the ones at home watching on TV. And plus, I mean, in the 80s, it was a bit different because
Mm.
no one had good good TV sets in the 80s.
Yeah.
So you probably would rather be at the ground. But these days, it's got high definition, great TVs, great system. So it's great, you know.
Yeah.
And here for this series in particular, we get two different feeds too. So we get the Fox feed and the Channel 7 feed. So
Mhm.
you're watching both at the same time.
That's great.
Rob, was there a time, you mentioned about, having this thought that, I might miss out on some footage. Was there a time, and I might be completely wrong, was there a time in Australia where the test matches would go on to the fifth day, and if the match is happening in, let's say, Melbourne, they would probably have intermittent footage of live streaming because you would encourage the people in the city to come to the stadiums? Or am I completely wrong?
No, you're right. So up until 2005, if the test match was being shown, say in Melbourne, we wouldn't get coverage until after the tea break of every day. And for the one dayers, you got the first 2 hours, and that was it. So if it was a day-night game, you got from 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. That's it. That all changed in 2005, which was actually incredible to actually watch an MCG test from the start on Boxing Day, because otherwise you're just listening to the radio and yeah, it was shown like where I am in Melbourne. It was shown after the tea break, but if you lived in regional Victoria, so 100 k's away, 150 k's away, they would get it in full. So I had to make sure I had a lot of people I know that live either regionally or in another state, or even in England. I had some people that would tape the cricket and send me the bits that I'd missed.
Mm.
So I always got around it, but it was a lot of effort in the slightly older days because I had to literally write to people and everything, and just took ages. But these days it's fine. But even back in the 2000s and the late 90s, yeah, I just had to have a nice nice collection of people who I liked and they liked me that could actually record the cricket. I mean, asking someone else to record the cricket, that that's pretty weird, especially when they've absolutely no idea what I'm really talking about. Sending off blank tapes to other states and everything. It was pretty weird.
This is just unbelievable, because I initially thought that this is only for the fifth day. But I think in Melbourne, it makes it probably even worse, because it's got what, 95,000 capacity, and invariably you won't, get it full. So if you're in Melbourne, you miss out until later in the day. Wow, that is unbelievable.
Yeah, and so interstate, if they were full, and it's regularly sold out, like the SCG for the New Year's Test, the first 3 days are all sold out, so they would get their cricket. So
Yeah.
I felt there was only one day that we saw the whole lot, and that was when the MCG was going through redevelopment in 2002, when England toured, and this one of the stands was being taken down, the Olympic stand, and or the Ponsford stand, and so there was a whole area of the MCG that was just dirt, and because of that, the capacity was lowered to about 65,000. And I couldn't believe it when they said it sold out on Boxing Day and the cricket was on. I could not believe what I was watching. But it's funny because I'd already set up 2 people interstate to record it for me. But it was on TV for us, and it was great because from memory, Langer and Hayden put on 200 against England on the first day, and that was great. I thought, oh my God, imagine if I couldn't actually see this. I would be angry all day. But because they had a habit of making big partnerships at the time in those few years, Hayden and Langer. So yeah, that was really good. But yeah, frustrating on all the other Boxing Days when you knew there was absolutely no chance. And I'd spoke to a few people, and I just said, come on, if there's 70,000 at the MCG, surely that's enough. You're not going to get 30,000 that are refusing to come because they want to watch it on TV or vice versa. So, but in the end, they figured it out, and it made no impact when they showed it from 2005 onwards. Made absolutely no impact to the ticket sales at all. You could argue for one day as it may have, but that was already happening anyway. Where there's no huge crowds at one-day matches anymore in this country. They're just an afterthought anyway.
Watching a cricket game in MCG is unbelievable experience. Nothing can replace it. I've been there myself on a Boxing Day, so absolutely, I'll go any day, even if it is on TV for free, and if I have it. So another story which is quite fascinating. So this is all about fans, right? Fans get content, which is all great. On Boxing Day morning, Virender Sehwag posted one of your videos, which is his opening day century. He was tonking Stuart McGill all over the ground. He posted it reminiscing. And then Stuart McGill responds back to him saying that everything I was throwing at you, you were sending it out of the park. Hope you have a great Christmas. So did you know that outside of fans, you're also having an impact on players using your content and getting connected?
Yeah, that's always been something that has happened. In fact, Stuart McGill was probably the first one, probably 10 years ago, to actually, where I was actually aware that he was actually seeing the footage. And something very random, in 2012, he actually had an online cricket show for 5 or 6 episodes, and I was a guest on that. And that was pretty funny. That's a long time ago now, but I asked him about what, do the players actually watch the stuff on YouTube? And he was like, yeah, they absolutely do. And over the years, different players have referenced videos of mine, like Ponting versus Shoaib Akhtar at Perth.
Yes.
It's been referenced several times. And Rodney Hogg referencing his bad dismissal against Michael Holding at the Wacker in '84. So yeah, it's pretty cool when they say, "Hey, go to YouTube, you can find it." And it's mine. But yeah, I mean, the good thing about this year is that because everyone has been online, and especially during the Aussie winter, which was the English summer, I mean, they upped their game with their online interactions, and Sky Sports with the Nasser Hussain and Rob Key interviews and just hour-long chats with players and going through the watch-alongs of the old matches with Alan Donald and Atherton. I mean, that stuff's great, and but it means that they're all watching old stuff all the time, and yeah, it just comes up. So yeah, and it's pretty easy to get those players' attention when they themselves aren't working 14-hour days. They're just sitting in front of the computer as well, so checking their Twitter account, all of a sudden, it's not just me, it's others as well, just we want to show our appreciation for their awesome careers and the memories they gave us, and that's really cool that they actually watch it.
It's great. And I know you do not monetize your YouTube channel, but players at least should send you goodies like signed t-shirts or signed hats for the kind of content you have about them. I mean, I would ask them if I were you, that kind of stuff, which is great memorabilia to have.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I actually don't collect almost anything else rather than the footage. I've got a bunch of books, but I'm not much of a reader. So yeah, I have very little footage. I other memorabilia. I don't have any bats that I got signed or anything. It's literally just the footage, and that's it.
So Rob, have you managed to have you managed to convert all the VHS tapes and everything into these modern day hard drives, etc.? It must cost a lot of money, I'd imagine, and you're not able to monetize it. So you've been able to manage it well.
Yeah, well, it's less expensive these days than what it was when I was younger, and not just comparing earnings from 1989 to now. Just actually, it's more cheaper now. I mean, I would spend all of my pay every week on videotapes, and as I got a little bit older, I mean, as you can imagine, when I was 9 and 10, I'm not earning too much money, but I would do anything. But as I got a bit older, I moved up in the quality of the VHS tapes that I would buy. So instead of the junk shop $2 tapes, which I was just hoping wouldn't just break inside the VCR, I moved up to the nice TDK tapes and the premium stuff. Then I bought a better VCR, then a better VCR again, super VHS tapes, and yeah, that was expensive because a tape doesn't hold that much, and if it costs $15 for a top quality tape, and it takes 3 of them to get a day's play of a test match, then that whole test match over 5 days has cost me a bit of money. So yeah, I can remember spending all of my pay. I used to work just stacking shelves at a supermarket when I was 15. I would just spend all of my pay on tapes every single week. For birthdays, Christmases, just give me tapes. I'll take whatever you got. Friends, tapes. All I want is tapes. But it got a bit cheaper as the 2000s came and DVD recorders came. They were initially ridiculously overpriced, and the first one I bought was about $4,500, which was just ridiculous. I actually still have it. It's under the bed. It's broken, but there's heaps of stuff on the hard drive that I had yet converted from 2004. So I still have to figure out how to do that. It's actually part of the India-Australia Test Series in India in 2004. There's a whole day's play on there that I can't figure out how to get off. But since then, hard drives are getting cheaper and cheaper. The capacity is going through the roof. I mean, you can get 12, 14, 16 terabyte drives in some formation. They're massive. So this is great. And of course, cloud storage is cheaper and cheaper all the time. You know, unlimited cloud storage for $13, $14 a month. Nothing wrong with that. That's great. So it's cheaper now for sure. I mean, and luckily too, because having teenage kids, they're not cheap. My son is begging me for some expensive $5,000 gaming machine, and I'm like, hang on, I've got hard drives to buy yet, mate. Your gaming PC can wait. You're only 13. You're not getting it.
Is he into cricket as well, Rob?
No, he can't stand it. He just trolls me all day. He goes, "Why are Australia playing India again? Didn't they just play yesterday?"
I agree. I mentioned this to Suman on our other video that in the 90s, I remember India touring Australia in 91, 92, and then there was an 8-year gap. Whereas this decade, this is our 4th or 5th tour. So times have changed.
Yeah.
The top three seem to play each other much more often these days.
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, yeah, I'm sure as Indian fans will know, we don't want to be playing Sri Lanka every week.
That's true. Awesome. So listen, I can keep going, but Sanjay, finish up your questions. I know we are about 45 minutes, but go on, Sanjay.
Yeah, so one of the questions which I had was, growing up in the 90s, we thought that India-Pakistan was the biggest rivalry. India wasn't a great test side and all. But, in the last 15, 20 years, I've been in England for the last 10 years. It's clear to me that, Ashes is the biggest test sporting event, around the world. The coverage which Ashes gets in England is unlike any other sporting event you would get during that time. So is it the same for an average Aussie cricket fan, that they would still rate England, Australia, the Ashes as much more above than any other series, and everything else is just like a warm up to the Ashes, because it's every second year you've got an Ashes? So even now the commentary is like, okay, yeah, the pitch is doing so and so. Will it do the same thing when Jofra Archer is here next year? How will that play out?
Yeah, I've definitely got my own opinion on that, which probably isn't the same as others. I've never cared about the Ashes at all. I mean, I see it as something that's just shoved down our throats by the media and the history of it. Sure, it's great. England, Australia is great, but I don't see anything different playing South Africa or India or Pakistan or West Indies. West Indies is a whole subject in itself. I mean, that was a whole lot bigger for me than the Ashes. I mean, you actually wanted to watch the West Indies back in the 80s and 90s. You didn't want to watch England. Yeah, I think that over time, surely it has to become less just important, and I mean, I'm assuming, I mean, from an Indian point of view, I mean, the Pakistan thing is huge, but it's non-existent at the moment, and not just at the moment, so long. Whereas, so other rivalries have sprung up, and the India Australia one, yeah, I mean, it was from pretty much 2001 onwards, you have to say. And so for me, that's a massive one. But yeah, the Ashes still has that legacy and the history. But yeah, it definitely irks me when I hear the commentary on, sure, you made runs versus India or South Africa, but can you do it against England? I'm like, oh, come on, not again. You could almost think it the opposite way. Steve Smith scores runs against England, but can he do it against Boomer at the MCG? The answer is no.
Yeah, reading that stat, it's quite unreal. Steve Smith was the last one to score 100 between India and Australia, and that was back in Dharamshala of 3 or 4 years ago. So the last six,
Yeah.
7 matches, there's not been any 100. Whereas, back in 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, you would, score hundreds for fun pretty much every innings.
Well, growing up watching the West Indies, I mean, they were the toughest team by miles to beat. And any country from that era that scored runs against West Indies, you know about it still, because it's etched into history. I mean, everyone knows Javed Miandad, Vengsarkar, Alan Lamb, David Boone's hundreds, Alan Border's hundreds. These hundreds were hard to get. They were never just buffet bowling innings. Those. Yes, it's just funny thinking back. Those all those hundreds were famous hundreds, and you don't quite see that same sort of thing anymore. But hey, you never know. Rahane's 100 in this test was phenomenal in the context of the game. Wasn't a hugely watchable innings, but it didn't need to be or have to be. So he had one job.
Yep.
And he did it.
Yeah. The game. Awesome. This was fantastic, Rob. You literally made our 2020 by talking to us. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And we are going to post this on our YouTube channel and ping over the link to you to have a watch. But really appreciate you making time. This is early in the morning for you. Thanks very much. Enjoy the third test match. Hopefully this should be a close series. We are predicting 2-2 Australia and India by the end of fourth test. What do you think?
It'll easily be 3-1 to India. Australia has got absolutely no hope. Unless Ricky Ponting puts the pads back on or they dig up Don Bradman, I think we've got no chance. But then again, Indian fans tend to be a little more pessimistic than the Aussie fans. But hey, the first test was won by 8 wickets, 7 wickets, 8. And the second one also won by 8 wickets. So it looks even there, but there's huge momentum for India just based on the consistency. I mean, getting out for 36, that's never going to happen again. So, but bowling Australia out for 200 all these times in a row, that's significant. So that's the stat to take away, is that they've at least been dominant in that area, and Australia has not been dominant at all in the batting. It looks completely brittle. So, we'll see. Smith has to fire. That's it.
Smith
Are you expecting many changes? Sorry, Suman.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Are you expecting many changes, Rob, to the team?
Well, they're a bit stuck because they've got to select from the players that are in the biosecurity bubble. So they've really only got Warner to come back in. I can't believe that if they select Harris, that's just a waste of time. But because I don't think he's improved since last time he got dropped. But yeah, they're pretty much stuck. They don't have a bad top six. It's just that they're not firing because the Indian bowlers have got their measure. And great captaincy, field placing, consistent execution of bowling tactics. That's what it's been. That's Test cricket. So the players are still good enough. But then again, guys like Pujara have done nothing, and who would have thought that after last time? I mean, he's just nicking everything. So yeah, it's still a bit to play out yet. But hey, the SCG next, and India have never won at the SCG, despite every tour, everyone's saying this is their most suited ground, where I think they just played at their most suited ground.
we would have won the last on the last tour. I think it was the rain that would have
Yeah, well, there's several tests they should have won at the SCG over the years, at least 4 or 5, but for various reasons they didn't. But I would expect that it actually will suit them this time, and it is at the SCG too, so that's confirmed. So that's good. So yeah, New Year's test is always good. It's just a bit later this year, starting on the 7th. It doesn't really feel like a New Year's test, but still, it'll be great.
It will be great. It will be great. Like this conversation, it has been absolute pleasure, Rob. Have a wonderful New Year's. Thanks for making time for us. And I'm sure we will have you back on our channel sometime early next year again. Thank you very much, Rob.
Thanks
No
a lot,
problem,
Rob.
guys. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.